Hi, I'm Brandi Cheyenne Harper. I am an interdisciplinary artist and knitting guide living in Brooklyn, New York. My classes on Skillshare just launched. They're all about getting beautiful, neat edges, modifying sweaters, and getting, pieces that make you feel beautiful, sexy, and powerful. And guess what? I'm sharing an exclusive sneak peek with you. Stay tuned. So first, we're going to learn a really basic edge. It's the slip stitch edge. And I love this salvage edge that you can add to the last stitch of every row, or the first stitch of every row. It's so beautiful when combined with garter stitch. This is garter stitch. It's the first stitch you'll learn when you learn how to knit, right? It's knitting all your stitches, knitting all your rows when you're knitting a flat scarf. And garter stitch can sometimes look really, really loose on the edge. It's very subtle, but we can get rid of that looseness in a really simple way. So I'm gonna show you, this is a really basic scarf with that slip stitch edge. I want to give you just another way to look at it, but you can see how, it looks really tight. If I stretch it, it doesn't stretch anymore. It just looks really good. It's very clean. And I want to show you how to go about creating this really beautiful, neat edge on garter stitch specifically, especially if you're a new knitter. This is going to help neaten up your scarves, your blankets, your cowls, and tighten things up a little bit. I've casted on 9 stitches. I'm using some double pointed needles to swatch. You can use circular needles, you can use straight needles, you can use whatever you like for this specific edge. I'm just gonna use my double pointed needles. So for garter stitch is knit every row, knit every stitch. So when you are knitting your first row, your foundation row is just gonna be a basic knit row. So I'm just gonna go ahead and knit my first row. And I like 9 stitches because this is not a gauge swatch. This is about practicing my edges. So you can use any number of stitches that works for you. I'm using 9 because it fits perfectly on my double pointed needles. And it's enough where I can see it and I get a good feel for what it's going to look like in a larger piece. So I have my first row worked. Now to incorporate this edge into an existing pattern or into your own design work, you're gonna wanna slip the first stitch of every single row knitwise. If I were just to knit this row and just keep garter stitch just with no special edge, this is what that first stitch would look like. I would go into my stitch, I knit it, and then I knit the next stitch like that, right? And it will look something like this. If I just knit it like I normally would. I'm gonna go ahead and take that out and I'm gonna show you what that looks like when I slip that stitch instead. So instead of knitting it, I'm going to slip that stitch knitwise. And what that means is you wanna move the stitch over to your right hand needle as if you were going to knit. So you put your needle into your stitch as if to knit, but don't knit it, just slip it off. And then every single time you slip that first stitch, pull it nice and taut. Because we really want to create that really beautiful, neat salvage edge on this garter stitch. And then I'm going to knit until I get to my end of my round, and I'll slip the first stitch of that row. And I'm going to knit just about maybe an inch or 2 here so that you can really see what that looks like. Your first stitch is always going to look a little loose. And that's okay, because once we slip that first stitch, we're gonna pull that tight, and then we'll just knit to the end of the row. I mean, you can really incorporate this edge in so many different ways. I particularly love this way of slipping the edge when it comes to garter stitch. There's other ways to slip stitches, but this is my preferred method for garter stitch. I'm just gonna do a few more rows. We get a nice little swatch to show you. Now this is a very subtle change. The difference really depends on your yarn, how tight or loose you knit, but it's noticeable. The difference between regular garter stitch edges and slip stitch garter edges. So I'm just gonna knit just quickly. Here we go. That is the slip stitch edge. So simple, very beginner friendly. If you knit your first scarf today and you're like, my edges are looking kind of wobbly, I don't know, they're looking kind of not cute, try the slip stitch edge. It's gonna neaten it up, it's gonna tighten it up, and it's because we're not knitting, we're basically getting rid of 50% of the rows on that edge. Because remember, we're not knitting it, we're just moving it over. So that's why it's tighter on the edge than it is in the body of the work, and why it looks really neat and why it looks really tight, because we're literally just getting rid of one of the rows on the edge. So if that makes sense to you, hopefully you'll be able to see it manifest when you practice your own swatch. So go ahead, cast on a few stitches and practice your slip stitch edge, and I'll see you in the next class where we're going to talk about the I-cord cast on. Thank you for joining me in this lesson that was one part of my series of classes with Skillshare. Join me in one of the full classes to learn how to get really beautiful, neat edges. Click on the link below. I can't wait to see you there.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like and subscribe to stay up to date on all of our latest videos.